All right, Kai. Come on out here. Welcome to the panel center.
Seth Peck, table 1. Jeff Yamada, table 1. Kai Zhang, where are you hiding?
Sorry, you better ask me.
Blake, table 1. Do we have enough chairs?
I sit next to chess ball. Chess ball.
Yeah, we have enough chairs. All right. Derek, Adam, Leonidas, come on over, have a seat. All right, guys, we are going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes on a question and answer time. And my only request is that you ask questions to everyone except for me. I've talked quite a bit this week, so ask one of the questions to Chance, Kai, Seth, Blake, Jeff, or Matthew. So if you guys don't have any questions, I've got a lot of questions for these guys. But how about we start with Anna? Do you have a question for one of these guys? No? All right. Who's going up? Who's starting with the first question? Yes, Derek.
What's the best way to get a lot of friction on a ball when you're doing a reverse pendulum?
What's the best way to get a lot of friction on the ball on a reverse pendulum serve? Who do you want to ask to? Anybody?
Yeah, it's open.
All right. Kai, you're up.
How do you get more spin on your reverse pendulum serve?
This one.
Yes.
I don't serve this.
Set.
Okay.
Crack Pop. If you're not a subscriber to his YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe, turn on the bell.
You gotta subscribe. So the reverse pendulum, what kind of spin do you want to make? Under or top?
Yes.
All the spin. Okay. So having a nice flexible wrist is important. Your grip change is probably going to be one of the most determining factors. If you have your rubber, it's going to make a big difference, really. If you have a sticky rubber, it really helps. Probably your motion, if you are able to get under the ball for backspin, which is actually quite difficult with the wrist, then you're able to get a lot of backspin. If you're only able to get on the back, then it's hard. I like one tip Samson said was just forget the table and just try to make a lot of spin for a while. Don't worry about the net. Don't worry about keeping it short, and just really crank out the spin, and then you can kind of tone it back and try to control it, and that's a good way to start getting spin.
Good.
Is that good advice for any serve you're trying to learn?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, instead of trying to perfect 20 different aspects of it at the same time, like Seth said, really just trying to get the motion right, get a lot of spin, possibly do a grip change, and don't worry about the ball staying low and short and everything. Just getting a lot of spin initially is really a good start. All right, who's got the next question? Adam, I know you're cooking up something good. Leslie? All right, I've got a question. Match tactics. Chance, as it relates to your game, what would you say is the #1 match tactic that you like to use against almost anyone? Instead of a specific opponent, what's one of the main game plays that you like to do?
I feel for me, making the other player as uncomfortable as possible is really like my main tactic. I seldom focus on trying to play better myself and really try to bring the other player down to my level to where they feel very uncomfortable with the patterns that I'm playing, and I'm giving a lot of different kinds of spin, and force them to kind of second guess their game plan so that I can start to kind of execute my will on them as opposed to the other way around.
Okay, good. Excellent. All right, Leslie is cooking up something good for us. I love good questions, Leslie.
Just to go on to what Chance is that something that you can do at a higher level, or just
No, not necessarily. It helps if your foundation is already pretty good, if you're not making like simple errors when you're doing that, but you can do it at any level. making the other player play worse and making them feel more uncomfortable with your pattern is effective at every level.
So there's 5 different ways that I've mentioned every session that you can make your opponent feel uncomfortable with speed, spin, placement variation, and consistency. So speed is hitting at a different pace than they're used to playing at. Okay, so you can hit the ball faster than they're comfortable with. With spin, being able to generate more or less spin than they're hoping for. Speed, spin, placement. Instead of playing the ball directly to backhand, play a little bit to middle or a little bit to wide backhand. Will bring more errors from them. Speed, spin, placement. Variation. Variation could be a lot of different things, whether it be different shots. And then also consistency is sometimes being able to put one more ball on the table than they can. So when Chan says make them feel uncomfortable, that's really good summary of all 5 of those. Is whatever you do, you don't want to play within their comfort level. Absolutely. Blake has something to say.
Just on that, like yesterday afternoon, one of the things we did was play 2 serves each, and then you talk to each other afterward. These are the things I felt you did well, and I think maybe some of the things you maybe didn't do as well. But a lot of times, you as the match is going on, you're going to be able to analyze that, and you want to force the players to do those things that they don't do well. That's going to make them feel uncomfortable. If you're just playing to their game, their forehand loop is really good cross court. Okay, so you put it cross court to them, they loop it cross court, they're comfortable, they're feeling good. But if you start putting it to their middle, all of a sudden they're uncomfortable. You know, to look for things that they don't do well. That's going to make them feel uncomfortable.
Okay, quick follow-up on that. My style is different than most everyone else I know because I'm trying to do things I don't do well. And I'm trying to get better at those things that I've gotten worse at. So one of my tactics is to give them something that I know they're going to open up on, but see if I can get there to block around it. I don't know if that's something that a Chance would do, or if anybody else would do, or if that's just me being dumb.
So what you said is where probably 90% of the players are all at. And that's establishing the ability to hit different shots. So you're saying that you're trying to fix your weak points. That's great. Once you have all the basics established, you know how to push short, you know how to push long, you know how to block passive, you know how to block active, you know how to do normal counter loop, you know how to do counter loop variations, then you can start using more tactics and being able to string these shots together to beat the opponent. But most players are at the stage that they should not be primarily focusing on just tactics. They need to be developing each area of their game. That's why we're not starting off with drill number 1 as tactics. We're doing basic blocking, we're doing basic footwork, we're doing basic pushing, because all those things are very important. Chance has got another one. All right, everybody sit down.
So as it relates to kind of what you guys were talking about, Samson, Kai, and I were talking about this yesterday, and one of the big things that people think about in the match is how to fix the problem that's going wrong. And one of the big things that I guess is a little bit different for me than many other players is I don't worry oftentimes about fixing the problem. I try to circumnavigate the problem. So say I'm having a hard time looping the deep push. Well, one way to get around that is creating a situation where they're not able to give me a deep push. So maybe I serve more long, or maybe I serve just like very straight topspin and they can't give me that deep push anymore. So instead of thinking about like how I'm gonna fix my problems in the game, oftentimes this is very difficult to do in the moment. I think more on terms of how can I get out of this problem to where it's not happening anymore instead of just fixing it.
All right, I've got a tactical question for Jeff Yamada. As you know, when he was a national team player in Brazil, he was Penhold. For some really odd reason, when he moved to Ohio, it might be the water he was drinking or the food he was eating, he somehow switched to shake hands. And he's playing at quite a good level with shake hands. So, general tactical question. When you're playing against Penhold players, what would be a good tactic? And are there different types of Penhold players, and do you break out different tactics based on who you're playing?
Yeah, so it varies depending on who you're playing. Like you always want to find their strength, their weakness, right? Like and how to find their like make the opponent feels uncomfortable, like we've been talking to. But most traditional pen holders, right, especially if they use just one side of like the square, like the old square style, they will most likely like look more for the forehand attack. So like a basic strategy would be like, okay, serve short to the forehand, right? So it's more difficult for them to like pivot and use more forehand, and then fast to like backhand. But again, it all depends on the style of the pen holder player. But that's like the most basic. Every time when I was younger, I would play another pen holder, and I see like, okay, there's his strength or her strength would be like the forehand. Like they always want to look to like pivot, step around, use forehand. I would always like try to serve short to the forehand, like fast to backhand. Sometimes fast like down the line, so they don't expect every time to pivot. Right? But of course, if their strength is maybe more like blocking and moving people around, that would be like a completely different strategy, right? So it depends.
Thank you, Jeff. One thing that I think a lot of people get stuck on with tactics is putting people in a box and not really evaluating the current situation and just saying, well, all choppers play like this, or all penholds play like this, or all lefties play like this, or all Chinese guys with hurricane on the forehand play like this. You actually have to be able to evaluate the situation. What is currently happening? So in my tactics book, I have 30 different chapters on 30 different types of players and players to play against them. And one of the reasons that I haven't published the book is I hesitate a little bit putting people into 30 different categories and saying this is how you play, because I don't want people to get stuck on, well, Samson said in his book that you're supposed to play against this player this way, and then this is not the actual situation, what's really happening. So the best thing that you can do is evaluate point by point and try to ask yourself, what serves are working? What receives are working? Joseph, if it's 10-10 in the first game, how many serves have you served? 10. You've served 10 serves, right? Okay, so if it was 10-10 in the first game and you served 10 serves, how many of those serves can you remember what you served? Sarah, how many would you be able to remember? Okay, so you can remember 6 out of the 10. So you remember some, what worked and what didn't work. But what you serve at 10-10, Laura, is that important? Sure. But if you don't remember what you served, you don't remember what happened, and then you just be like, I think I'll just serve this. It might work, but guess what? It might not work. You've served long, out of your 10 serves, you've served long to Chris's forehand 4 times, and she completely obliterated the ball for a winner right past you. And here we are at 10-10, and you're like, I don't think I've served long to the forehand yet. And you serve long to the forehand, you get killed, you tell yourself, well, at least I had good variation. It wasn't good variation. It was tactical suicide. That was the worst possible option. She's already blasted the ball past you 4 out of 10 times, and here we are at 10-10 serving long. So when you guys read the book next year, when it's published, don't get stuck at thinking these are the 30 different player types, and this is exactly how Derek plays, and I need to know exactly this serve and this serve and this shot, and this is what I'm going to do. Tactics involves actually opening your eyes up, seeing the situation, understanding what worked and what didn't work, and make adjustments as needed. Sarah knows this. She's played against a lot of the top 10 girls in the country, and we have like very, very detailed notes on each one. But guess what? Every match is uniquely different, and that girl is also thinking, how can I play different? So you walk out there and you think you got a solid game plan, and guess what? Your game plan just got flushed down the toilet because you lost 11-2 the first game. Everything that you were planning didn't work, so guess what? We have to reevaluate. So when we talk about tactics, in the next couple days, we're going to be working on a lot of different game sequences. I don't want you to get stuck on that sequence. I want you to think, is this really working against Senra? My coach told me to do this, but I lost the first game 11-1, and I'm down 8-0 in the second game. Something's not working. I need to make adjustments. Absolutely. Blake would love to talk, and I'm done talking.
Just wanted to follow up on that 10-10 serve. I know, like, basically when you're playing your points out there, a lot of times I walk up to people, and the top players know this. Take your time on your serve. Think about what you're going to serve. Think about what return is most probable. Think about what you want to do if that probable return comes back, and have an alternative to if that most probable return doesn't come back. So that's 3 shots. So you want to think at least 3 shots in advance. The top players think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shots in advance. The patterns are fairly similar and probable. That doesn't always happen. That's why I keep saying probable. But I want to really start out stressing that you have to take your time before you serve and think these things through. Often the younger people in particular rush up their serve. Okay, lost one. Rush up their serve. Rush up their serve. So so your 10 serves, I can't think you remember any of those 10 serves at that pace. So really work on slowing down and thinking the point through before you play the point. And there are probabilities and there are things you can do.
Thank you, Blake. I have one last question. Huh. Okay, I'll give you the last, second to last one, then I'll take the last one. Okay.
You're playing a brand new player, you don't know anything about them. Do you sort of do a diagnostic session with them when you're playing, or do you just serve what you like best? You know, how do you...
Sarah, come up here. Stand right here. Sarah, come on. Stand right here. We talk about this one a lot. Stand right here. Take the mic and tell Laura exactly what you focus on in that situation.
Laura's right there. That lady in the front.
So I think you should start with like how you play the strongest, and start with like your plan A, and then make adjustments from there.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They adjust to you, Laura. You don't adjust to them. They adjust to you. You go out there and you hammer them 11-2, 11-1, 11-2, and they're the ones that are going to go order that tactics book to try to beat you. Yes. You start with your strong point. You start with your strong point. Oh, okay. I'll get off my soapbox.
Go for it, Chance.
You got 2 minutes warm up before the match. You should be making some observations in that you can see what kind of rubber they have. You can see how they hold the racket. You can see which hand they use to play, Laura, right? You can you can see how they stand to see how they favor their forehand or their backhand. There's a lot of observations you can make during the warm up.
All right. Last observation, and then we're going to get on the table. Jeffrey Mata. Just say it. Say it. Nice and loud in the mic.
Also, if you know, let's say you're playing a group, right? And then you see your two opponents playing before, or you can always analyze how they play, what do they do, what type of serve they do, right? And then based on that, you don't have to find everything out right at the warm-up. You can watch and analyze before, or watching videos on YouTube to find opponents.
Yeah, and when you're watching them ahead of time, mainly watch for serve and serve return and what their main overall style is. Sometimes I'll tell my students, hey, you got a big match against Billy over there in an hour. Find out as much information as possible and tell me. And they'll come back and they'll be like, yeah, he just bought some new shoes at the butterfly booth and he had a bad match last month. I'm like, what? What do you mean? They're like, yeah, I checked his rating history and he got upset by 2 people last month and he has a really good coach and he hasn't been playing for very long. I'm like, that doesn't help. It doesn't tell me anything. I want to know, what is he serving? What is he returning? What is his overall game style, general strengths and weaknesses? Not what kind of shoes he has and who he beat last month. Okay? So that's the kind of things we're looking for as in regards to tactics. But like I said, 90% of you are still in the process of developing your own basic strokes, your own tools in your toolbox. And tactics are pulling out the right tools. So we can work on tactics, but in addition to it, realize that the basics are not good enough, so we need to be working on both. All right, very good job, guys. I'll put this video on YouTube if you guys want to watch it later. You can rewatch it. We're going to be starting with our warm-up exercises. Bring your rackets, water bottles, strong mental games, and full toolbox full of tactics out over to tables 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.